Latest intel reports Covenant troops are massing beneath the carrier.
They're pulling back? Why?
Not gonna find out way up here.
Troopers! We are green and very, very mean! I take it back. Davey got his butt kicked.
Hey, Romeo, remember when I told you to shut your mouth?
Yeah?
Consider that a standing order.
Captain, 15 clicks off the deck.
Stand by to adjust trajectory. On my mark.
What'd she just say?
Mark!
We're way off course.
We're heading exactly where I need to go.
But we're gonna miss the carrier. Radiation! Covenant just set off a nuke?
No, the carrier's going to jump. It's a slip-space rupture. You need to...
EMP, losing power. Stabilize! They popped your ships! We're going in hard!
There was just something so unique about like wandering around these abandoned, dark city streets with that jazz music playing, and then
the soundtrack.
it's peak. And then you just see off in the distance. You're like, I think that's a brute and a couple grunts. And then you like start fighting them, and you're like, whoa, my health's going down quicker than I'm used to, you know.
Yep.
And it just the atmosphere and everything about it. I mean, it was cool how like the hub world was a new thing for ODST, but it also didn't feel too out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like when I'm on the streets in New Mombasa, it does feel like a Halo mission. You just know that it's not a structured mission. It's more of a find the clue type thing.
Right.
But then you have a map and all that stuff. And
I thought that was awesome because it was like, I felt like for me as someone who kind of wanted to live in the world, but then also not like necessarily get the narrative. Like it was nice to just actually roam around. If I wanted to roam around and just shoot things with no narrative structure, I could do that and actually live in the world and just look up and around me, look down and take in all the flashing lights on the cars, or they're going on the different platforms, or trying to get all the phone calls and just man, I the more I play that game, the higher up it climbs on the list.
Yeah.
Even when I think about it like that, specifically ODST really retains that Bungie charm, but if I can be more specific about what I mean, think about the Another Day at the Beach cutscene.
Yeah.
And just how it felt with ODSTs there, and it had that Halo charm. I don't know, it's like when I watch that cutscene every time, it's like I get this hint that there's a bigger world that exists beyond Master Chief. As much as I love him, always want to play as him, it just made the world building seem fun without really getting to see the world being built, so to speak. But when I play ODST, it's the same thing. It's like these little moments of just amazing like scenery, cinematography, music, like everything is just, it's like less is more with this game to me.
Yeah, well, two things I'll say like that you made me think of is one, there's behind the scenes, I think it might be the Oh Brave New World documentary from Bungie. I think that this
That's
is
so
in.
Good.
But there's a couple developers at Bungie that are just like, and I don't know if they're like being hyperbolic or they actually mean it, but there's a couple developers that are like, ODST is the best Halo we made. Best Halo we made by far in that documentary. I think the reason they feel that way is because, a lot of those developers at Bungie were feeling fatigued by Halo, and they're just like, this is something new, and it's not the Chief, and it's not the typical things.
I remember them covering how it was like by that point in time, they still had 2 games in their catalog left to fill out in their contract.
Exactly. And then that's the next thing I was thinking is like, it's kind of crazy, and I'm not upset about it because I love Master Chief, and I love Halo 4, and I like a lot of aspects of 5. I'm really glad we got to continue seeing more Chief, but it is kind of surprising that Bungie kind of set 343 up perfectly for saying, hey, Halo can go in so many different directions. You don't have to follow Chief. It can be successful. It can be good. People can enjoy it, and it doesn't have to follow that main narrative with those familiar characters. And then 343 just decided to go forward with the main narrative and main characters, Master Chief and Cortana, which, once again, I think most of us out there, if we're honest, kind of wanted that, but, whenever I hear people say, I mean, even Frank O'Connor said it back years ago after Halo 5's poor reception, and I think he said it, in my opinion, for good PR speak. I don't think he actually means it, because I think Frankie's like way too smart to mean it, but Frankie was like, oh, we understood the criticisms with Halo 5. People want Chief. They need a Chief story. And it's like, whoa, back it up there, Frank. Like, I know, like, that's one of the things that people wanted was more Chief, but there was a whole hell of a lot of problems with Halo 5's campaign and story, and it wasn't just the fact that you weren't playing as Chief. And I think, everyone at 343 knows that, but that's a really good way of not lying, being honest, even if it's a little sly for PR and saying, like, people want more Chief. Because he's not wrong in saying that. But if you gave us something like Reach, most people were happy with Reach's campaign, and there was no Chief. It was just that Halo 5's wasn't executed, properly.
Well, that's the thing that's, I think, most interesting about it, looking back, is that game could have not been good at all. It could have been received so poorly because it's the first game you don't play as Chief.
Yeah.
And I think everyone took to that actually really well. And, and another thing, on top of that we haven't even talked about yet, is I did not know myself. I was so out of the lore loop that I didn't even realize it took place right after the Mombasa missions in Halo 2, because it was advertised as Halo 3. So ignorant
looks
me
like
is
Halo
like,
3.
Ignorant me is like, this is happening while Chief's doing all his other stuff in Halo 3, and these guys are on the streets of New Mombasa doing their stuff. Did you know? I mean, I would figure you would have known.
I did know, but and that's the thing is, and obviously, like, it doesn't matter where your stance is. There's no reason to die on this hill. But I hear a lot of people say, like, I really feel like the game should have been called Halo 2 ODST, and I don't agree at all, because it was initially set out to be an expansion to Halo 3, and that's one of its biggest criticisms we should also talk about. But it uses Halo 3's engine, and it's kind of almost a little prequel almost for Halo 3, because in Halo 3 ODST you have two different moments. One, you have, if you watch the legendary cutscene for Halo 3 ODST, you see Truth discovering the portal, like because they're digging, they're excavating. So you have him discovering it, which when you get to Halo 3, you don't get to see him discover it. You arrive as he's using the portal. Mm-hmm. So that kind of builds up for Halo 3. Also, you have Sergeant Johnson, who shows up at the end. And he's like, he talks to the engineer, and he's like, what are they excavating? What are these guys doing? So the whole game kind of sets up for 3. It uses 3's assets. It's just an expansion to 3. It comes with 3's maps. I get that it takes place closer to Halo 2's story, but to me, it's tried and true Halo 3 ODST. It's a Halo 3 game.
I get it. I mean, I get either which side of that, but I think it...
But still, if you stand by Halo 2 ODST, I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong. It's just my opinion,
Right. If you were to sit here and ask me if I had a preference, I would say Halo 2 ODST, but...
You do have that preference.
I think it makes more sense to call it Halo 3 ODST, because it's using the Halo 3 engine, and like you said, it ties in more to... The setting itself is from Halo 2, but it's really leading in more to the events of Halo 3.
It ties in...
Plus...
It's so similar that when they brought ODST into MCC, they made it so you could use ODST weapons in Halo 3, because it's the same engine.
Yeah, there's not too much different in terms of the gameplay loop, aside from like the health, and you can't go flipping cars and stuff like that crazy anymore and stuff. But I mean, there's little subtle changes, but nothing like super big innovated. It's because it is more an expansion than it is a real full-fledged game. But the other thing is I think with that kind of game, when it came out, it's like it made because it felt like an expansion to me, which that has like negative connotations. I don't look at it that way, but because it felt like that, I felt like it should have been tethered to Halo 3. I was just gonna say, to wrap up these thoughts, is I like that it's still Halo 3 ODST, because for me that was more exciting in a way. Like, from a marketing standpoint, it's like Halo 3 was just so successful. You didn't even think Halo 2 could be any bigger and successful than Halo 1 was. Well, it outdid it, outperformed it. Then you're thinking, I mean, for us as fans at the time in 2006, even 2007, we're thinking it's gonna do it, but it somehow does it, and Halo 3 exceeds it for most people. And then ODST, it's like, well, then why not borrow from the tagline of the newest one, the most popular one, the most relevant one, and say, hey, here's this, because also it came with that bonus disc that had the maps and everything that you could now. So it was basically like free DLC if you spend the $60, which did help balance the price point.
Well,
I think.
It's super smart to not try. They didn't want to try to outdo themselves, because with Halo 3, they're like, okay, we're setting this very high bar, so how are we going to close out our time with Halo? I think they just wanted to end on the high note with Chief of Halo 3, and then they went to the side to ODST and Reach, and the expectations are lower when you do that. But yeah, to go into ODST's biggest criticism, it was always the fact that it was initially pitched as Halo 3 Recon, and it was an expansion to Halo 3. It was supposed to be $40, $20 cheaper, because it wasn't a full game. And then what ended up happening is that they couldn't use the happening. Yeah, what ended up happening? They ended up not being able to use the Recon title because of some copyright or something like that, and they changed it to Halo 3 ODST. And then as the game expanded, they said, okay, it's actually not really an expansion. It's like a full game now, so it's going to be full price. It's going to be $60. And there's a couple different ways to look at that. On one hand, the campaign is not as big, bombastic, as long as Halo 3 or Halo 2.
Every time you say that, I think of Jar Jar Binks.
Right. It's like the campaign's not as big. It doesn't have an online multiplayer suite. It doesn't have its own like Forge and all that stuff. stuff. So like it is a smaller package. So, you know, you're like, okay, is it really worth $60? And then, but then you have, you know, the counterbalance of, okay, it comes with a second disc that has all of Halo 3's multiplayer on it, you know, but then some people already had most of that, if not all of that. So you're kind of weighing the options back and forth there. And my thing is, you know, this is my opinion, and I don't think my opinion is objectively right at all. I just kind of think it makes sense for me is, you know, back in the day, if you're a Halo fan, and for me, like a lot of people, if you think ODST was an amazing experience, it was a great game, how upset are we that we had to spend $60? Is it not worth $60? I mean, I feel like it really was. I mean, even if I didn't get the Halo 3 multiplayer stuff included, you know, that was such a premium experience. The campaign, the firefight mode was so much fun. I feel like it was worth $60. And then to counter that, let's say you don't feel it was worth $60. You know, that game was probably on a sale in like a year or less. And then over time, I mean, in a couple years, it was down to like $19.99 platinum hits. So, you know, I almost feel like it's almost null and void to have a discussion about how fair ODST's price point was this far along.
Funny that
because,
it's 2021 and that's still being talked about.
Yeah, because it's 2021. I mean, the price point's kind of irrelevant now. The last time the price point was relevant, it was $20 as a platinum hit game. So I just feel like it was such a small window and such a small amount of people, I think, that were disappointed in what they got for that amount of money. I think it was fair. I think it was worth it. Their mistake was, and I'm sure they knew it from the beginning, was that they said it was an expansion. It was going to be $40. Like once they said it, you set that precedent. Really saying it was the problem. I think this discussion would have still happened if they'd never said it and it came out at $60, but not nearly as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I look at this two different avenues. One being they promised that, and Bungie had a way of sometimes over-promising and sometimes under-delivering. You know, with stuff like, as much as I love Bungie, you know, that's a fair criticism, I think. You know, especially when it comes to how hyped up the smoke and mirrors E3 demo for Halo 2 was. And the other thing is it's weird. Me now, Brian, I'm like, $60 makes a whole lot of sense because I remember paying $20 for the map pack from Halo 2. I remember getting that when it came out, and that was a big deal. You know, I didn't have Xbox Live, so I'm rushing over to the friend's house and everything. We're having a little LAN party and trying out Turf, and I'm just like, this is amazing. I've never played a game that had DLC before. This is so cool. It's a landmark, you know, shift in gaming. You know, I'm just amazed and floored. So that was cool because 360 era was still very much in that kind of like, you know, you're not always online, right? So you could have this stuff for offline use and whatnot. That was cool. I mean, that in and of itself to me was like $20 just to get all those maps. A lot of people, like you said, did have them, but I think it was cool to offer that. But the campaign itself, I'm like, yeah, that is probably a $20 experience, but at the same time, I get it's Microsoft. I can get campaign-wise in Firefight, I'm getting the $40, but it's like then you have the 20 with the maps and everything. So it balances out to me now, but back then I would have probably said it should have been 40 because 20 for the campaign, 20 for the multiplayer.
Yeah, well, I think I've talked about it on Twitter before, but like it's all about perceived value. Like, for instance, The Witcher 3, $60. You got the soundtrack, you got the map, and the game's got what, 150, 200 hours of gameplay.
Yeah.
I think Witcher 3 is amazing. One of the best games I ever played. I like ODST more. You know what I mean? So it's like $60 for ODST, $60 for Witcher 3. Obviously, you're getting way more content. And I would say, even in an objective opinion, I would say Witcher 3 is a better game. I mean, but I would still, as Brian, as someone who loves Halo, who really enjoyed that campaign, that story, those characters, the firefight, I would rather have ODST than Witcher 3. So it's like, when it comes down to $60, you know,
even though Witcher 3 is huge for me, ODST is not a game, it's a mood. You know, it's like a state of mind you get into.
For
like
sure.
That rain starts coming down and you're hearing all that, and it's just like, oh, I'm there. And it's just the implied moments throughout this campaign. Like, I can't remember what it says. I know I'm driving some of you guys nuts listening to this, but there's the moment, I think, when you're playing as Buck and you see like tons of dead, I want to say it was elites and brutes, and then there was like a bunch of like weapons scattered around. I can't remember what part it's at, guys. I'm so sorry, but like there's all those implied like battles that previously took place, and they're just littered throughout. And I thought Halo 3...
Stuff written on the wall.
Yes, I thought Halo 3 and ODST by extension did such a great job of like giving you those really cool key moments. You know, like, okay, like in Halo 3, I see CR-117, you know, you go up and you see on this ridge up ahead in the distance, you see a brute that's holding a Marine. Yeah. And if you let it happen, he's going to kill a Marine. Well, if you attempt to save him, you can, and then you'll get some extra dialogue. There's little moments like that kind of throughout, and you kind of get that sense of an implied event that happened before you arrived there. Like, this world was breathing and existing before you arrived, right? Which is really cool, because I feel like I'm taking a part in a real battle that's not just depending on me, it's everyone, you know?
Yeah.
Everything's at stake. So then in ODST, you get the more boots on the ground feel with the hell jumpers, and it's like seeing all this stuff scattered around, and then also not having, you know, the shield and everything makes me feel so very human.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Now, health packs come back, and if you're somebody who loved, you know, Combat Evolved, it just kind of feels like a throwback. You know, it's cool to have that.
Dude. It really does. On the walls and everything.
Josh, who's your favorite character from ODST?
God,
like ODST
Buck.
specific.
I feel like that's such a lazy answer, but I've always loved Nathan Fillion. Really loved watching him in Castle. Don't kill me, guys. I've seen Serenity, but I have not seen any. Well, what's the damn show? Firefly. Oh my god, I was blanking on the name from. I haven't even seen Firefly, but I love Nathan.
To make you not feel as bad, Josh, I've watched a few episodes of Firefly back in the day, and I couldn't get into it back then. But me and Erica are planning to go through it, so hopefully I can, you know, get into that. But Buck,
I'm due for it.
Buck
I'm just like, I don't want to get invested, and then like, no, it's coming to an end, and it's damn it. So
Buck's a cliche answer, but it's also the right. It's like the right answer. I mean, not that it's a wrong answer to pick anyone else, but Buck was such a great addition to the Halo universe, and to this day, you know, when people list some of their favorite characters, Buck's always in there. You know, they brought him back for Halo 5, and people were happy about that. And
here's why Buck works for me. Completely agree, Brian. Buck works for me because Sergeant Johnson is not. He proves Sergeant Johnson is not lightning in a bottle. You have just this sharp-witted, quick-tongued guy who's super hilarious, you know, right? And with Johnson, I mean specifically. And then you have Buck, who's like the next version of that in a way, in his own way. And then we also get like our first taste of real romance with him and Dare, which is just so cool. I think Dare's even she's definitely, if not the other, like tied for first, she's second right there, because it's so nice to get a female Marine outside of like Hall. Well, not that Halsey's a Marine, but you know, because we don't even get to really see her until Reach. But just, you know, any you know, in Keys and everything like that, Miranda, I mean, but it's just so nice. She was just so new and unique and everything, and had the ponytail, so she was like ready to go. This wasn't like some girl who had her hair down that looked like a Skyrim mod or something, you know, like she was ready to go into battle, and you get that implied sense of dynamic, you know, that contrast between them two as people and everything. I feel
like she was handled so much better as a female character than Miranda. I feel like Halo 3 Miranda just kind of got wasted, and then like Dare, Halo, you know, I like Miranda a lot in Halo 2, but in Halo 3 she just kind of gets like, she's just there to be there, and then I feel like Dare, you know, was really handled really well. For me, the character that's tied for first is the Rookie, and you know, I hear a lot of people say, you know, well, the Rookie, you know, he has no character, and why would you care about him and whatnot? And like, on one hand, I agree, he doesn't have much character, but I think the reason I love the Rookie so much, and it really pains me that they killed him. I think it seemed like a lazy choice. Was it Bad Blood? Was that the
book?
I think so. It seemed like a lazy choice to kill him.
Does not get good reception at all.
No, it seemed like a lazy choice to kill him. It just felt like they were like, okay, well, he's a silent protagonist, so, you know, it's easy, let's kill him. But like, I think one of the reasons I love the Rookie is because for me, it was Bungie accomplishing their goal of having a character that you felt like you were them, the empty vessel. When I play as ODST, I feel like I'm the Rookie. I feel like I'm underneath that ODST helmet. I've never felt that way with Chief, and I know some people feel that way with Chief, and I know some people like the empty vessel approach to Chief, but I talked about it not that long ago, and a couple episodes ago, like Chief, you know, against Bungie's wishes, he never really was an empty vessel that much across all Halo media, but they accomplished that with the Rookie. And when I play as the Rookie, I get into those boots, I feel like I'm him, and then they add just a couple quirks to the character that make me have a soft-hearted spot for him, like when he like picks up a trinket and he kind of spins it around, or, you know, he's sleeping, he's kind of lazy, like
some of his glances that he does too, just looking around, you know.
It feels like Bungie was saying, hey, you're the player is the Rookie, you're the character, everything happening around you, you know, these big characters like Buck and Sergeant Johnson, these personalities, they're here in the game, but you're the Rookie. And I loved that, and I just love his design, and I loved that they call him the Rookie, and I would just have liked to see more from him. I would like him to stay not a character. I'd like him to stay as that empty vessel for me, like if we had got an ODST 2 or something, but they killed him off, which is unfortunate.
In a book.
I think Buck, in a book, you know, and Buck's the best addition, obviously, from that game, but I love the Rookie so much. Josh, I was going to ask what your opinion was of the Engineer, because the Engineer is actually, most of you probably already know, but the Engineer is the floating alien that's introduced in Halo 3 ODST, who's not really on a side. He's not on the Covenant side. He's not on the UNSC side. But he was actually, not the specific one, but the Engineers as an alien race were originally in Halo Combat Evolved. You can look up screenshots of them in the game. Mm-hmm. They ended up getting removed because Bungie thought that it would be confusing for the player to shoot all these aliens across Halo Combat Evolved and see this one alien that was pink and looked, like it could be related to the Covenant.
For the time, yeah.
Yeah, for the time, it was a great decision. They removed it because you're going not gonna know that that's it's kind of confusing. Why would that be an enemy that doesn't attack or whatever? But they ended up bringing them back finally for ODST, introducing them to that world, and then having that engineer play a specific part in the story of Halo in this game. And then also they bring engineers back again in Reach, which is really cool. It kind of ties that together better. But Josh, what do you think of the engineers, like their character, their design, their inclusion? Do you like them? If we saw one in Infinite, would you love it? What do you think?
Shouldn't have been floated in there. That's what I think of them, because I kill them every time I see them. No.
Floating gas bag.
There's sometimes I try not to, but I always end up ultimately shooting them because it's just like free target practice. I don't know. It's easier that way. My rookie rust's better. I don't know. Yeah. But I thought it was cool. And yeah, I mean, I remember knowing about that from Halo 1 as well. And it was just really cool to see some of that unused concepts kind of make their way into the later games that we got to see with that. So I liked the engineer stuff. I thought it was really cool because it also introduced a new gameplay element, right? Because you're playing ODST and you have new things like the silenced SMG and whatnot. And you got the scoped pistol, which is a whole new type of pistol, and then you're playing within the Halo 3 sandbox, but then you also add, so the enemy wise, it's mostly the same, but then you add in the engineers and they kind of add in that little extra layer. And then I think there was an achievement for not killing a single one.
Yep.
At least on the 360, I'm sure.
I never bothered to get it.
Yeah, so yeah. Look how we're like, screw those guys.
Yeah.
But I thought it was cool because it just less about who they were, although that is really cool. I think it's really unique, and I love the cutscene at the end with Johnson. But I just like what it did for the gameplay loop, because there was like, if I go into a room, there's that brief moment where I'm like, Covenant, want to kill it, It's what my brain registers as. But then so you're seeing, like, let's say above you see it, but then below you see brutes and grunts and jackals and everything, and it's making me think differently about how I want to approach the situation and stuff like that. And even if it takes me a second to realize I'm not going to shoot them this time, or I am going to shoot them this time, it still affects how I kind of carry forward into that.
Just another cool way to like mix things up a bit.
Exactly. I feel it because I feel like ODST on a gameplay level is just so similar, and that's why it does make more sense to me to call it Halo 3 as the main title. But it still changed just a little bit enough. It threw in some seasoning in there basically to really make it feel unique into itself.
Absolutely. Josh, what would you say was your favorite mission or story point of the campaign of ODST?
Definitely Bucks, because you're getting to see him. Because in the very opening cutscene before they all drop, you get him and Dare kind of like being a bit combative with one another, and you get that playful banter that's just so well done.
Naval intelligence to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing too. That opening cutscene does so much. Before I come back to your answer, Brian, opening cutscene does so much because it's like every one of these characters gets so well established. Like, they're very identifiable in their own right. Aside from the rookie, which is you, and you get to really set that tone. But there's a little bit of enough there, like you said, to kind of either connect with or like feel like you can ingest, into yourself, sort of. So every character is like really gets pretty defined by that moment, because you're not really going to see them as the rookie, at least until the very end, right? So that's really cool that it establishes them. But then you also have Buck kind of coming in as this leader, but then he's also got Dare, who's like checking them and stuff like that, and you get that back and forth, and it's just like, oh shit, Helljumper. It's just interesting. It's our first real look at ODSTs and getting it behind the helmet and seeing what they think of things and how their perception of the war is and everything. That's really cool to me. But yeah, sorry. So it was when you do get to play as Buck, because then you get to see more of what was teased in that intro. So getting to see them, not so much in that first mission, but just like you get to see his mindset, and it just makes it all the more rewarding when he does get to link up with Dare again. And I don't know, I kind of like.
She punches him and kisses him.
Yeah, which I like about that too. Like, she is so much her own character. She's not there to supplement these male characters. She kicks ass in of herself. You know what I mean? Yep. And he just got that. Nathan Fillion has always had that playful charm. Anytime, like, I would watch Castle all the time. I don't know if anyone else listening to this has, but the chemistry he had with Stana in that show, I think that was her name, was just unreal, because it's Nathan Fillion. He's got like a natural charisma that reminds me of like Bruce Campbell in its own way. Some of these guys just have that. They just ooze it. They're like Captain Charisma.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he also like Evangeline Lilly's like husband or something in Lost?
He was. Holy shit, Brian. Oh my god, dude. My mind is being blown right now. Oh man, because you know what? That's cool. I'm just gonna say I'm Nathan Fillion. I'm Buck. If I'm fitting in, if I'm casting myself as a character in Halo from now on, it's gonna be.
You heard it here first, guys. So, Josh has to be Buck in the Halo universe because of Evangeline Lilly.
Even though it really ends well, or it ends poorly. Yeah. Am I saying well? It ends very poorly in Lost. But that is probably my favorite mission, just because I really get to see more of Buck. Like the first, you're running around and everything as the rookie, and you're getting to implement yourself into that. But when I do play as Buck, I get to feel his own Sergeant Johnson type of charm, but then I also kind of get to play as a predetermined character and see how that character thinks and feels rather than kind of make my own implied feelings. So it's nice, like, they do a good job of balancing that too in ODST. That's another thing. Wouldn't you agree, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and for me, yeah, it's kind of a weird choice, but my favorite thing, like, about ODST is being in the hub world as the rookie. All parts of it, because, you know, like, once again, it feels like me. It just feels like Bungie gave me, you know, Brian, the opportunity to be boots on the ground in a, you know, abandoned old New Mombasa city, you know, with it's in the dark, this music playing. I just get to run around, discover stuff, run into little packs of Covenant, take them out, you know, discover these different trinkets, you know, and just, I just love the atmosphere of being there. Every time I go to play ODST, it's when I start the game and I get, you know, I get in the game in that city that I start to go, man,
yep,
I love this experience, you know, and then every time I get done with the memory, I'm excited to go back to it.